The furniture manufacturers were not busy, allowing staff to take their holidays, and few were looking for new product. Having said that, I would have no new product until September. So at this time of year, I allowed myself to slow down a little and take things easy. Usually I would take off for a couple of weeks in the Canary Islands, but I had put that aside hoping that Kate and I could do something together. In many ways, this was a strange relationship. Apart from one kiss, it could not be called an intimate relationship, although both she and I had said enough to indicate that was where it would go. I was very attached to a certain Caitlin Lane, who also happened to be Kate Lacey. Now Kat Lacey was in constant demand, and it looked like that pressure was going to increase, leaving little time for Caitlin Lane to emerge. Much as I was happy for Kat Lacey and wished her success, I wouldn't have been human if that wish wasn't tainted with a little bit of selfish bad humor for denying me Caitlin. I was somewhat mollified when I found in my post box a small packet. It was the CD that Kate had made. She had autographed it as Kat Lacey, and then added a little note, "Thanks for showing me a new direction." She signed that, "With love, Kate." Meanwhile, Kate. The booking in Basildon went well. This wasn't a concert as such. The corporate event was a dinner with speeches. The band was there principally to provide music for dancing after the diners had finished their meal. The nice thing about it was that the caterers ensured that we were fed as well. Steve suggested that they would begin the first set, and towards the end of the first rendition of the melody, he would announce me. I would come on stage and the band would reprise the melody and I would sing. I agreed to this and waited nervously in the wing as the curtains drew back to reveal the band. They immediately went into Moonlight Serenade. Glenn Miller had adopted that as his signature music, and as Steve said, if it was good enough for Glenn, it is more than good enough for the Stila Band. As they arrived towards the end of the refrain, Steve picked up the radio mic and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kat Lacey." I was surprised at the warmth of the reception as I walked on stage. I wore a full-skirted long dress with a tight bodice in shimmering turquoise. I doubted that the short skirts or tight-fitting leather trousers would be suitable for this audience and the new Kate Lacey. Nor did I wear the long hair wig. I had allowed the blonde dye to wash out and my hair was now dark and cut in a style reminiscent of Liza Minnelli. Steve handed me the mic and almost immediately the band repeated the melody and I sang the first stanza of the lyrics. "I stand at your gate, and the song that I sing is of you love. I stand and I wait for the touch of your hand and of you love." After all these years, I shouldn't have been nervous, but I was. However, the nerves faded as I got into the song, and soon I was enjoying myself. It was years since I had really enjoyed singing. The years of doing the same old thing had dulled my passion for music. Now I was finding once again the thrill that brought me into this business in the first place. I sang for 3 numbers, and then went off stage as Steve fulfilled his booking by playing dance music. I reappeared to sing another 3 songs, having changed my dress in the meanwhile. A stray thought went through my mind. If this took off, I would be carrying around a lot of dresses. The costumiers I hired from would be very busy altering dresses to suit me. I finished the evening with our last number, "Smoke Gets in Your Eyes." The reception was superb. Yes, there were some glitches, but I doubt that the revelers knew about them. It appeared not, judging by their applause. The first hurdle had been overcome. There were more rehearsals to come to perfect the act, but I was confident that we had some good times before us. Steve agreed. As we left, he told me that we had been booked for their Christmas dinner for a very good fee, and they wanted the whole package. Gradually, over the next few weeks, bookings came in, and time became a precious commodity. Steve and his musicians were in demand for studio sessions. I was still getting bookings for rock concerts, and we had to get together to rehearse and refine our performance as Kat Lacey and the Stila Swing Band. The visit I had promised Jack was put back time and again. He was golden about it, constantly reassuring me when I yet again phoned him to put off our few days together, that it was okay with him and that I had to make the most of the phenomenon while it lasted. That he was so understanding confirmed my opinion that here was the man I could build a good relationship with. Although whether he viewed me in the same way after so many postponements was something else. At long last I found a weekend when I would be free. It would be early September. I phoned Jack eagerly. "Jack, I am so sorry that I haven't been to see you, but it has been manic for weeks." "I know, Kate. I have been hearing tracks from your CD on the radio quite frequently. You have obviously struck a chord with the public. I am really pleased for you." "It's all down to you, Jack. Who would have thought that an aging rock chick could find another career singing swing. I didn't, but you did. I really need to thank you properly. I've got a free weekend the first weekend in September. Please tell me I can come up and see you. I will argue the description aging at another time. You said the first weekend in September? Yes. Damn. I shall be in Belgium and northern France for the week before that weekend, and I shall be flying to Turkey over the weekend to visit some mills there. There are lots of new designs for me to view, and I can't miss out else I shall be too late for the furniture show. Are you holidaying in Turkey then? No. Kate, there are mills in Turkey starting to produce good stuff, and I need to get in as their agent in the UK. My heart fell. My first reaction was that he had got fed up with waiting for me, and this was merely an excuse. Then logic kicked in. This was Jack's job. This was how he made his living. Even so, I felt kicked in the stomach. Dejection must have been in my voice when I asked, Jack, have I messed it up? Messed it up? No. Kate, look at the reality. We are both busy people. You have something happening that is good, and you have to pursue it whilst it is happening. You more than I know how fickle the music industry is. If you miss this chance, it will be a regret for years to come. When you have the time, we will get together. It is just bad luck that that weekend I will not be here. Any other weekend I will be. And when you have the time to come, you will be welcomed with open arms. I felt a little better. I had got emotional and saw disaster. Jack just pointed out our situation, putting it into perspective. Thanks, Jack. You were right, of course. This could be a 7-day wonder. I was so looking forward to the tranquility of your home and just kicking back with you as a bomb against the frantic life I seem to lead. If I go through my diary and clear another weekend in September, may I come up to see you? Of course you can. I would love to see you. But if you have that first weekend cleared, don't start filling your diary instead. You can come up anyway and spend some time here if you felt like it. I am really sorry that I won't be here, but you're welcome to my home anytime. You would allow me to stay in your home without you? I was aghast. Yes, of course. You're crazy. Can I leave my toothbrush in the holder? I was joking actually, but Jack was equal to the humor. By all means, but you need to leave some panties on the bed as well. I giggled at that, then picked up. Worn or clean? Worn preferably, then at least I will be able to fantasize about the woman who used my bed when unfortunately I wasn't in it. You needn't fantasize. She will be there with you very soon. I was very tempted to go, and Jack told me how to find the spare key, hidden in the flower bed if I decided that I would go. The idea of a weekend in his comfortable and peaceful home, away from the noise and bustle of London, was very appealing. With that in mind, I gave thought to hiring a car. I had learned to drive when I was 20 and my earnings were bringing me some independence. However, I never actually bought a car. It was easier and less hassle to fly to bookings or use the train. The promoters would always pay for taxis when I needed them. Having a car available when I was at Jack's made sense as it was quite remote. He faxed me a map having highlighted the route from the main road which would take me to his cottage. I felt much better after our conversation. His offer for me to borrow his home for a weekend was quite indicative of how he viewed me, and the comment about the panties actually produced some moisture in my nether regions. It would appear that he believed we were moving towards something good as I did. That gave me a really nice, warm feeling. Let's look at the story from Jack's perspective. The offer for Kate to have the cottage for the weekend was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Yet having made it, I was quite content. At any other time of the year, I would have postponed my trip, but this was very important. The product I would be viewing and the selection I made would be the deciding factor of my next year's income. If I could pick up some agencies from the Turkish mills, I would be in a good position for years to come. The comment about the panties was tongue-in-cheek, but Kate's reaction to it told me that they would be there for me when I returned from Turkey. I had never had a fetish about panties, but it would be significant to our relationship that something so intimate should grace my bed. I looked forward to the time when Kat graced my bed herself. I was busy making the arrangements for my trip and was very pleased with the reception I got from the mills I contacted in Turkey. They had a long-established weaving industry, and their designs had become more acceptable for the European market. The best-selling factor was that in general their product was priced very competitively compared to the European producers. This was why I had to make these visits. I left little post-it notes around the cottage for Kat, telling her where switches were for equipment she may wish to use, and encouraging her to use the cottage as if it were her own. Usually I was quite excited when I left for this trip, looking forward to the new designs and deciding how I would sell them and to whom I would sell them. However, as I drove away from the cottage en route to East Midlands Airport, I was down. If Kate did come up, I would miss her. Meanwhile, Kate. My mind was made up. I was going. With that decision made, I arranged to rent a car at Derby Station and packed what I would need for the weekend. The choice was simple, really. Should Jack be there, the choice would be given greater thought for greater impact. However, one item did need consideration. I know that Jack had made that reference to panties in a humorous context. I intended to take the humor a little further and set up a signpost for hopefully a future. A quick trip to the West End and agent provocateur. A big hit on my credit card bought me a scrap of silk and lace which would have fitted into a small envelope. These panties were never intended for utility, nor were they intended to be worn for long. I had printed off his directions, and having picked up my hire car at Derby Station, I set off. There was no problem until I reached Holland and turned off the main road. With one eye on his directions and the other on the road, I literally crawled slowly through the maze of small lanes. I was certain that I had gone wrong somewhere when with elation I saw the sign "Beware of the Bull." The car rumbled over the cattle grid, and soon I was pulling up outside the cottage. The key was exactly where Jack had described. It's curious feeling to enter someone else's home, and I looked around cautiously as I crossed the threshold until I saw the post-it notes stuck in prominent positions. The first said, "Kate, welcome to my cottage. Make yourself at home." I walked through to the kitchen. Again, there were notes stuck all over. The one on the kettle said, "Tea and coffee are in cupboard overhead. Drink me." The sticker on the freezer told me, "I'm full of food. Eat me." I opened the fridge, immediately seeing the bottles of white wine. They too had a sticker. "Drink me." I filled the kettle to make coffee. While I waited for the kettle to boil, I wandered back into the lounge and picked up my bag to take it up to the bedroom. On the bed head, another sticker lured me to read, "Sleep well." Into the bathroom next, and yes, the inevitable stickers caught my eye. One, stuck to a packet containing a new shower cap, just gave me instructions on how to turn on the electric shower. The other was more intimate, saying that as the shower was big enough for two, perhaps I could suggest how it could be employed at some time. I blushed. Me? I blushed after all these years in the business. I blushed not with embarrassment, but from the mental picture that sprang readily into my head. As I walked back into the kitchen, I fanned my face to cool the heat that my naughty mind picture had generated. Just as I was stirring the coffee, a car drew up outside and a young girl got out. She seemed perturbed that the door wasn't locked and entered cautiously. I was here with Jack's permission, yet I still felt guilty as I walked through to meet her. "Hello," I called. The girl reacted to my call with anger. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing in my dad's house?" "You must be Ellen. I'm a friend of your dad. My name is Kate. How do I know you are telling the truth, and where's Dad anyway?" "Well, he's been in Belgium all this last week, and he's probably flying to Turkey at this moment." The anger vanished from her face immediately, and one of embarrassment took its place. "Oh shit, I forgot that." The embarrassment vanished, and she stiffened. "In that case, if you knew that, why are you here anyway?" "Your dad and I have been trying to get a weekend together for some time. I managed to get this weekend free, and unfortunately it clashed with his trip. Jack said to come up anyway, and as I needed to get some me time, I did." "A weekend together? So you and Dad are very good friends?" "Good friends, I would say, but I'm hoping to add the very part quite soon." I paused as Ellen took that and then went on. "I have just made some coffee. Fancy a mug?" I could murder a coffee. I've been driving for what seems hours. "All the way from Durham?" I could see her relax, and she smiled. "You know too much to be anything but a friend of Dad's. Let's get the coffee, and then I will subject you to interrogation." I got the coffee and brought the cafetiere, milk, sugar, and mugs into the lounge. Ellen was browsing through Jack's music CDs and picked up my CD. "I've heard some tracks off this on the radio. I'm surprised that Dad's got this already." She turned it over and read my message. She froze, then turned to me. She held up the disc with my picture on it and looked at me. "Shit, your cat, Lacey." Ellen stood there with a bemused expression on her face, then she blurted, "Bloody hell, my dad has pulled a rock star." I nodded as I poured the coffee. "How do you like your coffee, Ellen?" She came over and sat by me. "Just a little milk and 2 sugars, please." "Oh, my friends call me Ellie." And I am Kate to my friends. I see you like your coffee just like your dad. I pointed to the disc. They played that on radio too. I am surprised that you listened to that. Ellie laughed. It's not so surprising when you listen to Radio 1. They treat their audience as if none of them are over 14 and that they are nearly brain dead. At least on 2, you get some relevant news and current affairs. We sat sipping our drinks. I could feel the excitement in Ellie, bursting with questions and wondering which to ask first. So I started. I met your dad down in Devon. He was working and I was doing a show in Exeter. My driver cut him up as we turned into the hotel entrance, so when I saw Jack sitting in the bar later I went over and apologized. We got talking and found out we had both come from Essex. I invited him to come to my show the next night, and later back at the hotel we discussed our likes and dislikes in music. And Dad rammed Swing down your throat? Ellie interjected. Not exactly. It was more me trying to get him into rock. We exchanged numbers, and when I was doing a gig in Derby we went for a meal, and he showed me around Derbyshire. Then he brought me here. You know you are very privileged. Ellie was grinning. Dad is choosy about who comes here. Well, I must have said the right thing. I laughed. On the way I got a dissertation of Derbyshire history, and when we came back here I was introduced to swing. Your dad played me some of his music and I got into it. He put the playlist together on that CD. Later he took me back to my hotel, and for the last few months I have been trying to worm my way back here. I had commitments though, particularly as I had to promote this CD, and we could never get it together. So Dad invited you to come up here for the weekend? Yes, but I am pissed off that he isn't here. Work prevented me from getting here before, and now work prevents him from being here. Sometimes, Ellie, life sucks. Well, if he had been here, my turning up would put a damper on things. Possibly, but in any case, I am really happy to meet you. You mean you have to get the daughter's permission before you get down and dirty with the father? Something like that. I grinned at Ellie and she returned the grin. I got on well with Ellie. She had much of her dad about her. As we talked, it became clear to me how much she loved Jack. It was little comments at first, but when she talked about her mom it became clear. I love my mom, she told me. But the way she split with Dad was evil. I was just a baby, of course, when it happened, so didn't understand what was going on. As I grew older, I started to understand. Has your dad talked about it? She shook her head. No, he doesn't. But I have pieced it together from things that Mom and Roger have said. Excuse me, who is Roger? My stepfather. Dad was always working at the time, usually away somewhere on business, so it was easy for Roger to work on Mom. I think she had postnatal depression, so she was vulnerable. Dad knew nothing about it until he came home one day, and she had gone taking me. I didn't know until much later that she didn't even leave a note. I think that was Roger manipulating her. He likes to be the mover and shaker. Mom goes along with it, but sometimes when he is particularly nasty about Dad, she shuts him up. He gloats quite a lot that he took Mom away from Dad. That isn't nice. I suggested. No, I think Dad knows but has never said anything, although he never calls Roger by name. If he has to mention him, it is always your stepfather or Ellen's stepfather. The best thing about it was that Mom never made a problem about my seeing Dad. You love your dad a lot, don't you? Yes. He's a funny kind of father. All my friends have fathers who tell them how to live their life. Roger tries to do that as well. Not that it does him any good. Dad talks to me as an equal. If I have some idea in my head for whatever, telling Mom or Roger will get me a lecture on being silly or worse. Dad sits down and discusses it with me. He doesn't say yes to the idea or no. We just talk it through, and he makes me understand the positives and the pitfalls. Then he gets up and leaves me to think about it and make a decision. If I do whatever it was, and it drops me in the mire, he never says, "I told you so." He sits with me again, and we work out a plan to put things right. He doesn't get angry, but I would know that I had disappointed him, and that made me feel worse than if he had shouted at me. I heard a maxim once. A father is someone who lifts you up and holds you there forever. For me, that said it all. A bit like my dad. He wasn't keen on my singing career, and I knew he was really concerned about the whole showbiz reputation. You know the sort of thing. What's going to happen to my little girl? He kept his worries to himself, though, and I admire him for that. Ellie nodded. Yes, that's Dad all over. I'm lucky, and you have been lucky. Now doubly lucky if you hook up with my dad. Aren't you jealous? No, I quite like the idea. You wouldn't be a stepmom, more a girly friend I could talk to. Ellie went up to the loo, using the bathroom that was en suite with Jack's bedroom. I blushed as I realized that I hadn't taken down the post-it notes that he had left for me. I waited on tenterhooks until Ellie came down giggling. Wow, she cried. My dad the lover. He is naughty, isn't he? I decided to brazen it out. No, not really. I like his ideas, but he doesn't go far enough for me. The look on Ellie's face was priceless. She thought and went to say something and then shook her head. No, I can't have this conversation. It's my dad we're talking about. We all know that our parents don't do sex. I nodded, understanding what she meant. After all, whilst on a practical level, you know your parents must have done it. Emotionally, you denied that they had the same urges as you. I took the conversation into safer territory. Are you hungry, Ellie? I asked. Famished. Okay, let's rummage through the freezer. I am sure we can find something to put together quickly. Thank heavens for a microwave. Great. The freezer was packed full, and just as I would think, knowing Jack's character, every packet was neatly labeled with what was in the packet and the date it was frozen. A fleeting thought came to me, was I getting involved with a pedantic perfectionist? Ellie smashed that idea when she said, At last I have got through to Dad. He is useless at labeling things in the freezer. I know of many times he has come back from a trip and forgotten what he has put in here. Believe me, he has eaten some very strange combinations after he had defrosted the wrong meal. She rummaged some more and came up with a dish. Now this is good. She looked up at me from her kneeling position. Do you like fish? Yes, I do. Good, you'll like this. It's haddock with sliced potato layered with leek in a cheese sauce. Sounds good. It looks as if it's homemade. It is. Dad likes to play around a little with easy-to-defrost stuff. He made this once before when I was here, and I loved it. Ellie was right. It was very good. I went on a search and found a bottle of Chardonnay, and that went down very well with the food. So later we relaxed in the lounge with a glass of wine each. Sipping and talking, then sipping and talking more, soon finished the bottle. I opened another, and we segued into a slightly tipsy but very good mood. With sufficient wine to let loose a little, Ellie became more open. I'll tell you now that you will get it on with Dad. Oops. I mean get on with Dad. What makes you say that? Whatever you meant. You're here. She sipped her wine. As far as I know, no other woman has been here, certainly not for a weekend. Taking into account that he was happy for you to be here without him tells me that he sees you as someone special. Judging from those messages he left, he is quite keen on being very rude with you. I don't know if this is a conversation we should have. But if your dad wants to be very rude with me, he will not find me arguing about it. Indeed, I look forward to it. A somewhat bleary-eyed Ellie lifted her head and looked at me curiously. I don't get it. I mean, you are a celebrity, a famous singer. You must be surrounded by loads of very fit, gorgeous men. What's my dad got? Loads of very fit, gorgeous men who want to get between the sheets with me and then tell the newspapers to enhance their profile. No, thank you. What your dad has got is far better than any of these gorgeous men. Jack likes Caitlin Lane, not Cat Lacey. I like your dad because he doesn't fawn over me, because he talks with me, argues with me if he has to. He treats me like a woman, not as a rock star. I like your dad because he made me see what I had forgotten, the emotion of music, and opened up a new experience for me. I like your dad because I know if we got together he would never tell tales to the press, would never be disloyal, and would bring the love into my life that I have missed so much. Now possibly I am drunk because I have said too much. Who's Caitlin Lane? Me. The real me. Oh. Ellie lapsed into silence. I thought she had fallen asleep, much as I was about to do when after a while she muttered, If my dad loves Caitlin Lane, then I will love her too. That's nice. Ellie didn't reply, although it may have been that I didn't hear her as I slipped into a wine-induced slumber at that moment. Let's look at the story from Jack's perspective. Istanbul was hot. Very hot. I checked into my hotel having dressed that morning for a Brussels late summer, warm but not too warm, and stepped out of the air-conditioned plane into a fiery furnace. My sensible choice of clothes for Brussels were almost immediately irritatingly clinging. The hotel room was supposedly air-conditioned, but the system was waging a losing battle with the late afternoon Sunday. What is more, the air that it cooled and pumped into the room seemed to have come via the garbage area. Reluctantly, I shut off the aircon and opened the windows. I sighed with relief as hot, dry air wafted into my room. Relief that it no longer smelled of rotting vegetables. I got rid of the jacket, tie, shoes, and socks, accustoming myself to the heat, and sat out on the balcony with a bottle of chilled mineral water to observe the bustle in the streets below. I had collected messages from the reception desk, left for me by the weavers who I proposed to meet. It appeared that they would come to the hotel on Monday with samples of their products. I appreciated their courtesy, at the same time wondering if this was because they didn't want me to see their operation. I had no illusions that they would be the same very professional and streamlined operations that the Northern Europeans presented. I imagined a very different system here, just one step up from a cottage industry, but in the social strata where most of these products would sell, that in itself would be a plus. My thoughts turned to Kate, wondering if she had taken up my invitation. I hoped so. Despite my work, which involved being outgoing and friendly, I was actually quite a private person. My home was my hideaway from the world, and apart from Ellie, who would turn up unannounced at odd times, I rarely had visitors. My spontaneous invitation to Kate was completely against my character. Why? I asked myself. The answer was quite simple. Ignoring her celebrity, I felt an attraction, a strong attraction to this lovely, in my eyes, woman. I suppose that our common background had something to do with that, but it was more than that. It was character. We clicked in many ways. I was finding with her an empathy that I had never found with a woman, not even my wife. After all these years of being contentedly single, I was contemplating life with a partner. I didn't know if Kate was contemplating that, although her comments expressed a wish to take our friendship to another level. If that was the case, I would be very happy, and I could hope that she wanted even more than just a casual relationship. Sleep for me that night was fitful. The temperature, even after the sunset, was almost as high as the day. The buildings and pavements absorbed the heat, and once the sun had gone down, released the stored energy. I suspect it was close on 5 a.m. when it had cooled sufficiently for me to sleep properly. It did my temper little good when my mobile phone rang a few minutes after 9. Groggily, I found the damn thing on the bedside table, noticing as I did that the call originated from my home number. Jack Weston. Daddy. I'm at home and I have met this great lady who you seem to want to keep secret, and we are already the best of friends and get on like a house on fire, and she's really nice, and if you don't take care of Kate, I will never speak to you again. The one sentence came without breath or pause. Hello, Ellie, my dear daughter. How are you? Now I am sure that you were going to ask me how I was, so I'll tell you now. I have only managed 4 hours sleep in this heat, and I am tired and ratty, so thank you for calling me. I notice you're using my home phone, so this call is going to cost me. I assume from your garble that Kate is there. Daddy, don't be so grumpy. You know you love me and are absolutely thrilled to hear from me, and yes, Kate is here, so I suppose you want to speak to her instead of me. Yes, please. I'll talk to you in a minute. I heard the phone being passed over, and then Kate asking Ellie if she would make some coffee. I heard my daughter whinging and Kate telling her that she had something to say that would not be fit for Ellie's ears. Hello, Jack. Good morning, Kate. I didn't know that Ellie was going to be there this weekend. Not a problem, Jack. She's adorable. I do miss you, though. I have slept alone for quite a few years, and when I got into your bed last night, I suddenly felt lonely. I knew the linen was freshly washed, but the pillows still smelt of you. So I am going to be very forward and tell you I want to share your bed with you, and share everything that goes with that. Well, all I can say is that is my wish coming true. Good. Now I can hear Ellie coming back, so I can't say the things I want to say. When we next talk, I will burn your ears. Kate, I am gutted that I had to go away this weekend. There is nothing I want more than holding you close and waking up with you. I heard Ellie's footsteps and Kate asking her what she was doing. I suddenly heard the echo when the speaker feature was turned on, and then Ellie's laughter as she said, I want to hear what my dad is saying to you. She raised her voice. Dad. Kate is blushing. What did you say to her? None of your business. I replied. And I thought you were making coffee. Yes, but this is much more interesting. I laughed with her and replied, well, you know what curiosity did to the cat. It's not curiosity, Dad. It's educational. This cat doesn't seem in the least curious. Actually, from her expression, I would say she liked what you said. Cheeky girl. Now go and make the coffee. Spoil sport. I heard her footsteps walking away. She's gone. Kate told me, and at the same time pressed the button to cut off the speaker. I heard what you said, and I like the thoughts. I cannot understand how this thing has got so intense without us actually spending much time together. All I know is that I like you very much, and when you kissed me that time I knew it was something important. I thought you kissed me. I teased her. Okay. Let's say we had the same idea at the same time. When are you back? It depends. The itinerary seems to have changed a little. 2 of the mills are coming to the hotel tomorrow to talk, and I haven't heard back from the other mill I spoke to. So to a certain extent I am clueless. I could be flying home on Tuesday, or it may be later this week. You will be back next weekend? Definitely. Good. I am going back to London tomorrow, and Ellie's coming to stay with me for 2 or 3 days. Let us know when you are back, because Ellie wants to see you before term starts. That's kind of you. It's not being kind. I like Ellie. She loves you, and in my book, anyone that loves you is my friend. Anyway, we have some shopping to do. She said the word shopping with that inflection that women have, which means everything to another woman, and leaves the male of the species nonplussed. From what I can gather, it's not about actually buying things, although that could happen. It is more about looking, communicating, and constructing plots. Here's Ellie with the coffee. I'll hand you over to her for a few words. The phone went down, and then I heard the rattle as Ellie picked up. Dad? Yes, Ellie. You won't mind if I go to London with Kate? Of course not. I am pleased you get on together. I understand you are going shopping. It's a good job. I paid off your credit card last month. Oh, I doubt that I will buy anything, unless I see a dress that's to die for. Well, behave yourself and have a good time. I'll phone when I am coming back. Will you pick me up at Derby Station as I shall be leaving my car here? Yes. No problem. I'll say goodbye then and hand you over to Kate so that you can blow kisses at each other. The phone rattled as they changed hands. Jack, I am not blowing kisses. I want the real thing. I heard Ellie scream, ooh. So do I. We'll get together soon. Yes, definitely. Would you like to come to London and spend a few days with me? I would prefer to come to London and spend a few nights with you. I was thinking the same, but with Ellie listening to my every word decided not to say that. Probably best. My daughter has the habit of making mountains out of molehills. Yes, I have found that out. See you soon. Yeah, see you soon, Kate. My business in Turkey was finished on the Monday afternoon. Representatives of 2 mills had visited me at my hotel and showed me samples of their current production and their library of designs. The first arrived at 8 in the morning and the other at 12. I could not fault the quality, nor their prices, which I knew would please my customers in the UK. However, their designs and colorings reflected their ethnicity and would be difficult to sell in a Northern European market. They were very interested in getting a slice of our market and assured me they would do everything they could to come up with designs and colors that would suit the market I worked in. That was good for me, and I looked forward to seeing what they could do. I mentioned to both my visitors of my conversation with the other mill who had not continued my contact. The expressions that they showed spoke volumes. Their comments were also similar. Do not deal with these people. They promise the world, but rarely do their promises become reality. Was that truth or commercial rivalry? Before they left, we signed letters of intent for me to represent them in the UK. Before I left Istanbul, I telephoned the Turkish Commercial Bureau and eventually spoke to someone who had English. He confirmed my contact's opinion. When I arrived home, I would be having a rather heated conversation with the people in the Department of Trade who had suggested that I contact that particular mill. Their information was sadly unreliable. I landed at East Midlands Airport and, having retrieved my luggage and car, drove home to Hullanwood. It was good to be home and breathe the cool air of Derbyshire. The first thing I met when I went upstairs to pack was a pair of very frilly, very minimal, lilac panties laying on my bed. Kate had used my post-it notepad, leaving a message for me. Next time I shall wear them, and you can take them off. Having just delighted in the cool air, I was very warm again. As my trip to Turkey had been far more abbreviated than I thought, I had some free time for the remainder of the week. Having made certain that I would have the samples of new product from the mills in northern France and Belgium, I could now start making appointments to show the new designs to my customers. This took very little time, as they were as keen to see the designs as I was to show them. My travels around England were starting again. On Thursday, I picked up Ellie from Derby Station. She started talking about her time spent with Kate in London the moment she got in the car and didn't stop until we got back to the cottage, when she asked, "Are you serious about Kate, Dad?" I had been thinking about this for some time now, and really my answer should be yes. But I really needed to know how Kate felt. We had bantered about our relationship, but I was not someone who could get into and out of a relationship at the drop of a hat. I equivocated by replying to Ellie, "I am very fond of her." I could tell by Ellie's expression that this was not enough for her, but thankfully she did not press me on this point. However, I was certain that she would revisit the topic later. Ellie was a woman after all. I was right. Later that evening, she was telling me how she was accosted by some hooray Henry after she had gone out to a club. This idiot jumped into the taxi I had flagged just after I had got in. He coolly told the cabbie to take the young lady to wherever she wanted, and then said he could take him on to where he wanted to go. He turned to me and said that he would pay the fare and was sure that I wouldn't mind. Dad, I was flabbergasted. The cabbie had started away, so I sat there clutching my handbag as if it were the crown jewels. This floppy-haired chancer was chatting away as if this was nothing extraordinary. We got to the block of flats where Kate lived, and he got out of the cab after me. I asked him what he was doing, and he said that as he was paying my fare, the least I could do was to invite him up for a while. Suddenly, Paul the porter was there. Kate had introduced me to Paul when we first got there. He asked me if I was all right and did I need any help. The hooray Henry answered before I could and said that I had invited him in. Paul looked at me, and I shook my head telling him that I hadn't. Paul seemed to be about 6'6", and from that height, he glowered down at the hooray Henry and told him to leave now. The Henry went white, jumped straight back into the cab, and off it went. I hope he had a big fare to pay. I was smiling at her story, although I was a little concerned that she took such a chance. Ellie went on, "Do you know about Paul, Dad? Kate did say once that he is intimidating." "Intimidating? Dad, he's built like the proverbial brick S." Ellie, "Sorry, Dad, but you know what I meant. He's huge, an ex-sergeant in the Royal Marines, and he can give you a look that would stop cows giving milk." The hooray Henry would have lost his ardor after the look that Paul gave him. Well, I am pleased that he did. But Ellie, you shouldn't have gone out to a club on your own. "I didn't, Dad. Jackie, one of the other students at Durham, lives in London, and I had phoned her when Kate invited me down for a few days. She phoned and asked if we could get together at this club. She hooked up with this bloke whilst we were there, so I decided to go back to Kate's when she disappeared with him. Anyway, Kate is much better company than Jackie." She paused for a moment, and I knew she was going to return to her conversation of earlier. "I really like her, Dad. It would be great if you and she got together. It's not as if I want a stepmother, but she is so much more attuned to my ideas and likes than Mum or Roger. Beside that, you have been on your own for too long. I worry about you, Dad. I want to see you happy and with someone who loves you as much as I do. Kate does love you, you know. You deduced that from what, 4 or 5 days with her? I don't have to deduce that. Kate as good as told me. Now that startled me. Putting aside that my daughter, like many women, will read far more into things people say that was actually intended, I doubted that Kate would have said such as plainly as Ellie suggested. I decided that I needed to put a cap on this train of thought. "Ellie, whatever happens between Kate and me, let us make the decisions. I'm saying that I am really fond of Kate, and we could become a couple if we both feel that way. However, that is our decision to make in time when we feel it is right. Your eloquence will not persuade me one way or the other." "You're right, Dad. I shouldn't interfere. Just make sure you make the right decision." "I suppose that the right decision is the one you advocate?" "Of course, Dad." She smiled sweetly at me. Let's look at the story from Kate's perspective. Ellie was fun, and the expression on her face when I left those panties on Jack's bed was priceless. She picked them up and looked at the label. "Bloody hell. Agent Provocateur. They cost a fortune, and you're leaving them here?" I smiled. "Just a little message for your dad." Ellie replaced the panties, saying, "That's not a little message. It's a come and get me and take me to bed message." "Exactly," I rejoined. She was like a kid with a new toy when we got to my flat. First of all, it was London, which was a magnet for pretty well all young people. Secondly, it was in Chelsea, which according to the grapevine at Durham was where everything happened, and thirdly, a penthouse flat in Chelsea was the dream of many. Having lived there for many years, I did not subscribe to those feelings, but could enjoy Ellie's exuberance. Yet all that week I was on tenterhooks waiting for Jack to get back. I knew he would fly into East Midlands, so there was little chance of his calling into the flat, but just knowing he was back in the country gave me a sense of security. It was only when I understood that feeling that I realized how far my feelings for Jack had gone. It was silly. We hadn't met that much, although we had talked a lot on the phone. Yet I had this emotional attachment to him, more than any I had felt before for any man. By coincidence, the evening Ellie opted to go out and meet her friend, Jack phoned. "How was Turkey?" I asked him. "Hot, uncomfortable, and in the end a waste of time. I hardly slept at all. However, I liked Turkish cuisine, and their coffee is on a par with the French. Don't let them hear you say that." I laughed with him. I didn't get to see the mills. Their representatives came to me. I suspect they didn't want me to see their operation, probably thinking that I would regard it as very primitive. Business was conducted in a very leisurely way. Lots of coffee and inquiries about health and family. They were quite concerned that I wasn't married and seemed to be making arrangements for me to meet one or two of their female relatives. At that point, I had to tell them that I was promised to someone. They seemed disappointed at that. I think they wanted to foist off one of their unmarried sisters or cousins. I giggled as I asked Jack to whom he was supposed to be promised. The answer made my heart jump. "Well, I was thinking of you." I couldn't say anything, and he went on. "I am pissed off as I could have been back for the weekend and seeing you, which would have been far superior to Istanbul." I could hear the frustration in his voice. "Well, now I understand that your trip was superfluous. I am pissed off too. Ellie was great company, but not the company that I would have wished. Well, we will have to arrange another time soon. How are you fixed for the weekend after this?" "I don't care if I have anything. I shall cancel and I will be there with you. I have decided that we are more important than anything else at this time." "I think you are right. Same arrangements as before?" "Yes, except that I don't want to sleep alone. I don't think that I was going to offer you a choice." I caught my breath and had another of those nether region moistening. I tried to keep my voice level as we continued to talk, but it was difficult. After we had finished chatting, I sat back and thought. I decided that I had to stop fluttering around this thing with Jack. I knew how I felt, and from what Jack was saying, I felt quite sure how he felt. One of us would have to garner the courage to make that declaration. I hoped it would be Jack. However, I would if Jack didn't. My new career seemed to be getting into stride. I had signed up with a new agent who was recommended as being honest and straight. There's not many of those in this business. Steve was happy with him as well, and the agent had got us one or two good bookings. He phoned me the day after Ellie had gone back to Derby. "Kat, how are you and Steve situated for the Saturday the 17th of November? I know that I haven't booked anything for you, but you may have without letting me know." "Well, I am free, but I'm not sure about Steve." "Why? Have you got something for us?" "Possibly. That's the Saturday that Strictly Come Dancing does the show at the Tower Ballroom in Blackpool. They are asking if you and the band could do the interval spot. It's recorded and then shown during the results program." I was bowled over. That booking could really get us going. "Dave, I am sure that we can do it. Hell, if we had a booking, I'd cancel to get there. I'll call Steve and get back to you today. Make it quick, Kat. I would like to confirm within the next 24 hours. You haven't even asked about the money. It's a good job you have me to look after things. It's at the top end of your rate, so no problems there. I'll be back to you as soon as I can." Steve was bursting when I told him, although it put him in a spin. He had to contact his musicians to make sure they were available. The guys and girls in the band all had other work doing session work in the studios. However, it would seem that a weekend in Blackpool and a chance to sparkle on this spot was worth a lot more than the money they would earn. Steve came back with a positive, and I phoned Dave to confirm that we would be there. Steve had also suggested that we needed some backing singers. I was a little uncertain about this, but when Steve said that we needed the extra voices to fill and create the right sound, I had to agree. He was one of the best musicians around, and if he thought it was right, I wasn't going to argue. He said he had worked with a combo of two girls and a guy. They are good, Kat. They know what they are doing. Our travel and hotel costs were rising with every booking, and our asking price was going up as well. I hope we could satisfy the audiences. It took Dave a couple of days to get back to us with confirmation of the booking. I phoned Jack to tell him. "Kate, that is the most marvelous news. I shall make sure I watch that. It would be so good to see you and the band doing your stuff. I suddenly realized that Jack had never seen nor heard us live. I immediately felt guilty. Jack had inspired this whole re-emergence of my career, and without meaning to, I had cut him out of the excitement. If I can get you a ticket, could you come up to Blackpool for the show? I would love to, Kate. However, I doubt that you could get me a ticket. I think that show is oversubscribed. Try if you wish by all means. If it is a no-go, let's try for another venue. I am certain that you will be getting more bookings after you have done Strictly a Steve. The band and I got together for rehearsal the following week. We tried various numbers and eventually settled on I Know Why and So Do You, another Glenn Miller number. Steve was right. The backing singers filled in very well and also gave a contrast to my voice. One of the program assistants at the BBC phoned to ask what we would be playing. I told her what we had decided on, and she immediately asked what tempo. We were in the rehearsal studio at the time, and I asked Steve. He shouted back to me, "Slow foxtrot." The girl heard him and said that would be fine, as they would get one of the professional pairs to dance at the same time. There would be more rehearsals before we were ready. However, we weren't being rushed as we had 4 weeks to get it right. With this booking, Cat Lacey and the Steel Swing Band could really take off. Now I had another reason to thank Jack for giving me a signpost to a new career. I got to Derby Station late on the Friday evening. I was tired after a hectic day and a little bit grumpy as the train was crowded. I had booked my seat, but some guy was sitting there when I got on. He refused to move, saying that he had paid for his ticket and that guaranteed a seat. Eventually, the ticket inspector came along and asked him to move. "Or else, sir, I shall have to ask the railway police to remove you from the train." The man remained obdurate. The ticket inspector then asked me for my ticket and proclaimed loudly enough for the occupant of my seat to hear that he was upgrading my ticket to first class. The look on the interloper's face was priceless. If he had been cooperative, it could well have been him who was upgraded to first class. The inspector picked up my case and led me through to the more luxurious seating and seated me comfortably at a window. I was so pleased to see Jack waiting for me, and more so as he folded me into his arms and kissed me. Now that's how a girl likes to be greeted. I told him with a smile. Is that just at stations, or can it be used at other times? About every 5 minutes or so will do fine. As the evening moved on and it got closer to the time we would go to bed, I was overcome with shyness. I was amazed that I should feel that way, the emotions of a young virgin anticipating her first man. Jack would not be my first, nor would I be his first woman. Yet the thought of our encounter instilled fluttering in my stomach and symptoms akin to hyperventilating. We were sitting closely together on the couch, snuggling his arm around me and my head resting on his chest. I was so pleased when Jack took my hand in his and confessed the same symptoms. It's stupid, I know. After all we have bantered about our sleeping together, and now it is becoming reality, I am getting scared. Scared that I will not be good enough for you. I shook my head. I was having the exact same fears. I don't view you as a one-night stand. I am hoping that whatever we have going for us will be for the rest of our lives. If all we do tonight is sleep in each other's arms, that will be good enough for me. We have a long time ahead of us to get it right. He smiled lasciviously. Oh, I doubt that you will remain unsullied. I love you, Kate, and I want this to be for the rest of our lives also. Good. I smiled. I love you too, Jack. Happy was the word. Happy that we had cleared that up. Happy that Jack loved me as I loved him, and happy that he anticipated many years together. I reached up and kissed him. Give me 10 minutes. A girl needs to make herself ready. So do us blokes, Kate. Would you like some champagne? Oh, quite the experienced seducer. Not exactly. Isn't champagne the drink for any important moment in our lives? In that case, yes please, champagne is perfect. Jack and I went very well together. Actually, we went perfectly together because there was more emotion than I could have believed possible. Jack had given me slightly more than the 10 minutes I asked for, and I was thankful for that as I changed my mind about what I should wear for him. Eventually, I slipped on a silk pajama top, just closing one button. I didn't bother with the bottoms as they may have been too fiddly to remove. I waited for him in his bed. He had obviously thought ahead as when he came into the bedroom he was wearing a short silk dressing gown, so he must have taken that down with him earlier. He carried 2 flute glasses and the bottle of Piper Heidsieck. I remained tremulous until the moment Jack got into bed beside me and took me in his arms. At that moment, all the fluttering anticipation vanished. It felt so right to be here with him and in his arms. I awoke the next morning happily still in Jack's arms, except I was naked, the pajama top discarded. I smiled ruefully to myself. I bought the pajamas especially for this occasion, and they were quite expensive. I think I wore them for about 20 minutes in all, but they performed their purpose. A woman loves the feeling of her lover removing her covering. She loves his expression as he sees her body, bending down to kiss where a woman loves to be kissed. Jack was a considerate lover, taking his time to arouse me and allowing me to climb that hill to ecstasy on more than one occasion. Then he became demanding of me, and I willingly submitted to him. Not unselfishly, as when he cried his pleasure, I cried with him. I lay there thinking back over the night and squirmed with the memories of the pleasure he had given me. I felt him stirring and his hand closed over my jugs. This was how I wanted to wake up every morning. Good morning, Kate. If I didn't say it too many times last night, I love you. You can say it as often as you want, my darling. I shall never get tired of hearing you say that. I love you, and this bed of yours. It is very comfortable, and I slept very well. That may have been because I was very, very satisfied. Our bed, Kate. Our bed is often, and whenever you want to be here. I think that will be often, Jack. No one has given me more pleasure than you. You know that us girls have a name for guys like you. No, I don't know. Yes, you are a lady pleaser. However, I shall keep that my secret, as I don't want another woman encroaching on my man. I thought that women dislike the appellation lady now. I giggled and hugged him. I'm going to let you into a little secret. These bumps on my front pressing into your chest are sometimes referred to as my girls, and that place that you kissed and where you and I joined so pleasurably is known as my little lady. So when I said lady pleaser, you know what part of me you pleased. Ah, I get it now. Well, if I am, it has something to do with how I feel about you. Have I told you this morning that I love you? Yes, you have. However, if you want to say it again and again, I shall not stop you. I could hear that all the time and never get bored. Jack leaned over and kissed me gently. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll not be long. Oh, and I thought that was my doing. He grinned. Wait till I get back. While Jack was in the bathroom, I kicked the duvet away and posed seductively. The sound of the flush warned me of his imminent return. He saw me and smiled. God, Kate, you are so beautiful. Those words thrilled me. But even more thrilling was the physical evidence as magically his desire grew from slumber into tumescence. As I watched, I caught my breath, so flattered that just the sight of me could create that reaction. I sat up and reached for him. Now, that is your doing. You are so lovely. He reminded me as he joined me on the bed, pulling me to him and enveloping me in his arms. Put that where it belongs. I croaked. I lay back, opening and lifting my knees to open myself, then guiding him to fill me. What a lovely way to start the day. Breakfast was rather late that morning, as our starting the day turned into a very pleasurable experience again. I was not complaining, but eventually empty stomachs drove us reluctantly from our delightful loving. Croissants, apricot preserve, and coffee resolved the other hunger. It was then that slightly depressing thoughts came to me. Jack must have seen my change of expression. Is there something wrong? I looked up at him and my eyes moistened. It was just one of those silly thoughts, Jack. Where do we go from here? I mean, much as I would like, we cannot be together all the time, and I would like to be with you all the time. Your work takes you all over the country and mine is unpredictable. I know we could get some weekends together, but I have the feeling that that will not be enough for me. I could see his mind working, and he got up and sat next to me, putting his arm around my shoulders. What we have, Kate, is very precious. I didn't say silly things, and I doubt that you said silly things when we said that this is for the rest of our lives. That is a long time, and in the future we will have together. There should be no room for regrets or ideas of missed opportunities. Your career is important, to me as well as you. You know as well as I that fame in the entertainment business is ephemeral. Something good is happening for you, and you must see it through. Should the public interest fade away, then we should talk. I could sell my agency and retire. That takes one wild card out of the pack. I would be here whenever you want to come, or if you wished, I could be in London whenever you were there. I shook my head. No, Jack. If this bubble bursts, I would retire from the music business. If you were thinking of retiring, then I would rent my flat in London and come here to be with you. What do you think? Would you be happy in my rural retreat?" He had a smile on his face as he asked that. Happy? I would be delirious. I was just thinking how much I would save on clothes. I think I would not bother to get dressed at all. Well, in that case, you would have to be prepared for frequent assaults of a sexual nature. As long as they were loving sexual assaults, I would only scream quietly. Damn, I've got wet just thinking about it. Do we go up to bed? He was already taking off his dressing gown. Mine came off just as quickly. Forget bed. Here on the couch now. Love me, Jack. Meanwhile, Jack. Kate appropriated one of my shirts secured with one button at her waist, which was all she wore for the rest of the weekend. Well, most of the weekend, because I kept taking it off her, something she seemed to enjoy and indeed encouraged. She told me that if the weather was warmer, she would probably not bother with clothes at all. I must have a latent naturist inclination, Jack. She told me. But only for you. I love the expression on your face when you see me like this. It's full of love and desire. If you were nude as well, I would be insatiable. I keep wanting to make love with you anywhere, anytime. I think I would like to make love with you al fresco. After all, you have all this lovely countryside to explore, and exploring me while exploring the countryside sounds pretty good to me. Well, if you want to be an exhibitionist, I'll get the old tin bath out for you on the terrace. I should have kept my mouth shut as Kate declined to take that as a joke. The gleam in her eye told me she was taking it seriously. Later that day, Kate brought up the subject of my divorce. Ellie told me about her mom and how she left you. I have to say that was despicable. Did you have thoughts of revenge? The thought came to me, but first I had no idea where they were living. Her parents wouldn't tell me either. Second, I found out he was a police sergeant. So even if I had thoughts of getting some revenge, I would have finished being arrested. Later, well, my anger had subsided. I read somewhere that the best revenge is a life lived well. My work has been profitable. Most years my income is such that I can invest reasonable sums. Then of course my grandmother's legacy paid for the cottage. She also left me her investment portfolio. Ellie's stepfather is still a sergeant, and there is little chance of his being promoted. So in comparison, you could say that my life is lived well, and that could be my revenge. Ellis told me about his nasty remarks, and that could well be the reason. Possibly. I have been lucky, and now it seems that I have hooked up with this super gorgeous woman whose presence thrills me. Well, if we are talking thrilling, shall we? Oh yeah. After all the months when career pressures took their toll, I was so relieved that we had arrived at this point. In my heart, I knew that there were times when disappointment urged me to give up with Kate. Times when I was selfishly angry, only to be ashamed later. Kate was not in control of her work pattern as I was. When bookings presented themselves, she had to fulfill them or get the reputation of being unreliable. I was in no doubt about my feelings for her, and her response indicated that she had the same depth of feeling as I. She had voiced the problem we faced, that of the disparate work patterns. Although I traveled a great deal, there was a pattern to my traveling. I could tell you quite accurately where I would be a week from now, or even 3 months from now. Kate's pattern was dictated by what bookings she would get either as Cat Lacey or with the Stila Swing Band. My character tended to the positive rather than negative side. Yet even so, I knew that relationships rarely survived with long absences. Finding the opportunities to be together in the immediate future was very important. However, at this point in time, I was fully occupied with planning my attack on the furniture business with my new ranges. Over the next few days, the parcel carrier delivered quite frequently, bringing me the samples promised from the mills in Belgium and northern France. With that ammunition, I was able to start making appointments with my customers who were eager to see the new ranges. There was always a problem, as furniture manufacturers wanted an exclusive range to launch at the furniture show, which took place in January. I needed to get the greatest exposure of my ranges to ensure my income for the next year. Their needs and mine were not coincidental. Over the years, I had developed a plan. For the show, I agreed to exclusivity. After the show, all ranges were open to all manufacturers to put in their ranges. Therefore, my best customer got the pick. That design came out of the offer, and the second best customer got their pick, and so on. I got some moans, but at the end of the day, most of my customers understood this was the only way I could arrange this. Having made my appointments, I was off on my travels. I would be calling in Long Eaton for 2 weeks, so I would be working from home. After that I was off, first to Yorkshire, then South Wales, and later down to London. Kate knew that I would be coming to London and told me firmly that I would be staying at her flat. Bookings apart, she would be there with me. I looked forward to that. The new designs were going very well, and by the time I had finished my traveling in South Wales, I was assured that I would get at least 10 designs in the show. There were many manufacturers of quality upholstery in the London area, but only a few that were worth my calling on. Although I hated taking my car to the metropolis, I had little choice as the number and weight of my samples was too much to carry by hand. Kate had told me that I could use her parking space in the basement of her block and had alerted Paul, giving him my car registration number. I was relieved when, having arrived at the barrier, it lifted. I let the car drift down the slope and was confronted by a huge man who waved me to the right and then left, indicating where I should park. As I got out of the car, this man mountain held the door. "Mr. Weston?" he inquired. "Yes. And you will be Paul?" "Indeed, sir. Miss Lacey told me that you will be in and out every day. If you would park in this space, whenever you return your car will be safe." "Thank you, Paul." "No problem, sir." He took a few steps and waited by the boot. "Do you need help with your suitcase?" "That's all right. Over the years of traveling, I have got used to packing and with being economic with my clothes. So it's a relatively small case." I got my case out of the boot, and he led me to the lift. "You need floor 5 and it's apartment B." "Thanks, Paul." The lift stopped at the ground floor and Paul exited. Just as the doors were closing, he put his hand over the leading edge and the doors stopped. He coughed. "Miss Lacey is a very nice lady, sir. I would be unhappy if she was messed around." I wondered what his definition of unhappy was and how it would be demonstrated. "Paul, Miss Lacey is a very nice lady, and I also would be unhappy if she was messed around." The grim visage softened and morphed into something that could be viewed as a smile. "I am glad we see things the same way, sir." He withdrew his hand and the doors closed. I pressed the button for floor 5, noting that it was also the top floor. The lift rose quietly and smoothly, betokening good service. It was little trouble to find apartment B. There were just 2 apartments on floor 5. The door to B stood open and Kate was standing at the door with a great smile on her face. I dropped my case and took her into my arms. Our lips met and stayed that way for some time. Eventually, our lips were back in our own possession, but only after a few encores, shorter than the first but nonetheless enjoyable. After that greeting, "I don't know if I should feed you, Jack, or take you straight to bed." Kate was happily smiling as she led me into her apartment. "Can I help in making that decision?" I asked. "No, I think not. Anyway, I know what you would say. I'll do the wife thing, welcoming her husband home after a hard day's work, letting him kick off his shoes, loosen his tie, and I'll make him a cup of tea. Ah, the bliss of married life." She giggled. "Not the married life I experienced." "Nor me. Perhaps we could do—" Kate closed her mouth abruptly, embarrassed. "Better?" I suggested. "It's okay. That's where my thoughts were going." Kate was surprised. "You're joking." "No, I love you, Kate. I have believed that I was in love before. Now I know what real love is. So why should it be a surprise that my thoughts were of marriage?" "Is this a proposal?" "No, just regard it as a statement of intent that I intend to propose someday soon." "How soon?" That would be telling. It would not be a surprise if I answered that question. Anyway, it all depends on your tea-making expertise." Kate came up to me and wrapped her arms around my back. "You're a bugger, Jack, but you're my bugger and I love you." She lifted her head and kissed me. "Now I shall go and practice making tea for my very demanding man." She let me go and made her way to the kitchen. She had nearly left the room when she turned, smiling. "And I hope you are going to be very demanding later on." I could hear the rattle of the kettle and cups being prepared. Kate peered around the door and told me to put my bag in the bedroom. "Have a look around. Our bedroom is the first door down the passage and the bathroom is en suite." The apartment was quite large, and from its design and the shape of the windows, I concluded it was built sometime in the 20s or early 30s. I didn't have to snoop as all the doors were open, and I noticed 3 bedrooms, 2 with an en suite bathroom and another, smaller bathroom at the end of the hallway. I suspected that it was designed when a single man or woman would have a manservant or maid. Kate's bedroom was not how I imagined. Most men would imagine a women's bedroom to be shades of pink, pale blue, or any of the dusty colors. Frilly decorations with knickknacks crowding the tabletops and shelves. Not so Kate. Her bedroom was almost Spartan. White predominated. Walls, bed coverings, dresser and cupboards. All white, almost institutional. Apart from the cushions scattered on the bed. Their colors of strong, vibrant colors of red, blue, black, and turquoise positively alive set against the dead of the white. Kate came in behind me. I know the decor doesn't have much imagination. I have been telling myself for years that I should get something done about it, but I seem to be away somewhere all the time, and I'm only reminded when I get back. She opened a drawer in the chest. I've cleared this drawer for you, and there is space in the wardrobe to hang your suits. The bathroom is through that door there. She pointed to the door in the corner of the bedroom. Get settled, and the tea will be ready for you. She brushed past me as she was leaving. I grabbed her and pulled her to me. Come here, lovely lady. I encircled her with my arms. She looked up at me, her eyes twinkling. Now I explained about my lady. I know, and I am going reacquaint with her. I just wanted to hug and kiss you for now. That's always acceptable. She raised her lips to mine for a kiss. Are you going to undress me now, or after you have your tea? How about we bring the tea in here and we'll undress each other? Kate's eyes clouded with desire. Now that is a very good idea. As I had done at my home, Kate made certain that I should regard her apartment as my home as well. I came and went as I wished and made my calls, some positive and some not so positive. I was intending to return to Holland on the Thursday until Kate informed me that she was rehearsing with the band on Friday. Sometimes it's difficult to get all of us together and to find somewhere we can rehearse. It's a last-minute kind of thing, but we can all get together on Friday, and Steve has managed to get somewhere in Shepherd's Bush. Would you like to come along? It was a superfluous question as far as I was concerned. Of course I would. The venue turned out to be a Salvation Army hall. Parking as usual for anywhere in London was a nightmare, but I found a spot in a side street demanding much reversing and going forward with lock-to-lock maneuvering. The caretaker of the hall let us in. He was quite a character of approximately 80 years of age, wearing the remnants of a pinstriped suit, the trousers held up by a broad leather belt and the waistcoat over a striped grandad collar shirt open at the neck. He explained that the wiring had gone funny, but the electrician had been in and it's all Sir Garnet now. I had heard the expression before and looked it up. It referred to Sir Garnet Wolseley, a general in Queen Victoria's reign. He was renowned for his attention to detail, which enabled his forces in many actions in India, Africa, and the Crimea to overcome opposition quickly with a minimum of casualties. This led to the phrase, all Sir Garnet, meaning everything was all right. I was surprised and amused that it was still used. The band were setting up, and Kate introduced me to many of them as and when they had a moment. Steve Brackley arrived, and I was introduced. Right, the man who knows everything about swing. He jested as he shook my hand. You reckon? You actually play it, so I think it's you who should answer the questions. Whatever. From what Kat says, you introduced her to swing and her voice is perfect for it. So thank you. Kat says you have a lot of original recordings from the 30s and 40s. A few. Could you give us copies? We try to get an authentic sound, but without hearing the originals it's difficult. I can do that. I'll put them on a CD for you. Fantastic. Once everyone was set up and tuned, Kat became involved with Steve, leafing through reams of paper she had brought with her. Although they had decided on what they would play in Blackpool, they were rehearsing a couple of other numbers, just in case the BBC changed their mind. At first they played just a few bars as Steve, and Kat tried out slightly different phrasing. Finally they were set. The girl on keyboards played a descending ripple, and the saxes and trombones started with the melody. Kat didn't come in immediately, but waited until the band had gone through the refrain. It was then that she came in with the opening line of the lyric. Why do robins sing in December? Long before the springtime is due. I was sitting on a chair at the back of the hall, as close to the center as I could get. I was disturbed by the door creeping open. It was the caretaker, and he was listening with a small smile on his face and tears running down his cheeks. When they finished the song, Kat and Steve went into a huddle with the lead saxophonist. I turned to the caretaker. You enjoyed that? He nodded and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Yes, Gov. Took me right back, that did. My old ma loved that song. She was always singing it as she was washing up at the scullery sink. I just got the picture in me mind. gave me a bit of a turn. I can tell you. I didn't know anyone was playing that stuff now. Grab a chair. They were playing other titles. You'll probably remember them as well. We sat companionably enjoying the music as it came. As this was rehearsal and not a performance, the music would be halted often as Steve would ask for a different rendition of a passage, trying for that elusive original sound. In between times, my elderly companion would talk. It was his history in many ways evoked from the sound of his past. Something struck home. He had said that this music had helped morale when the world was in turmoil. All those men away from their families and everything they loved dearly. Didn't matter if they were English, Scottish, Irish, French, American, even the Krauts listened to this music. These sounds brought them together. He stopped for a moment and then went on. You know, many people hated the behavior of the Yanks over here. Look at it differently, though. They came over here from a place that had never been bombed, where the lights were always on, where you could get anything you wanted. They came here to blackout, rations, and austerity. They saw the bomb sites and realized what war looked like. They came thinking that they would whop Hitler's arse in a few weeks and then go home to parades, medals, and their grateful girls. Now they saw the reality that the fighting would be bloody, and there was a good chance they would never go back to the USA. They were young, fit men. It was no wonder they tried to seduce anything in a skirt. After all, a man who reckons he's likely to die doesn't want to die without ever having a woman. Now that put a different slant on the bitterness of our troops, whose women it was that the Yanks were seducing. My old companion went on. The Yanks were quite generous. For us kids it was, because they had plenty of candy to give away. I was 10 and 45, but some of the younger kids had never tasted chocolate. The Yanks couldn't believe it, but as I said, they had never lived through wholesale bombing of a civilian population. He sat quietly for a while, remembering a past that for most was history. Then he muttered quietly, "It was this music, though, the greatest gift that America had ever given the world." I would remember those words. I left early that afternoon in a futile attempt to avoid the traffic congestion that Friday afternoons inevitably creates on the M1 motorway. Kate had extracted a promise from me to return a week later for the weekend. Let's look at the story from Kate's perspective. My life had changed so dramatically, and Jack was the catalyst. I had a new slant on my singing career, and with him I had found the love that I had craved ever since I was a teenager. As I thought about it, I was slowly coming to the conclusion that if the one was to flourish, then the other had to be abandoned. I could not give myself 100% to both. There was no contest. If I continued singing and all the travel that incurred, my relationship with Jack would be put under strain, and I wasn't going to allow that to happen. This thing with the Steel Swing Band was an episode, and like all episodes, there would be an end to it. I decided that when that happened, I would retire from singing completely and make my life with Jack. We went up to Blackpool 2 days before the show. Much as I tried, I couldn't get a ticket for Jack. They were reserved for relatives of the celebrity dancers, and those who had applied for tickets months in advance and had been lucky in the draw. A program assistant explained how we would fit in. Dave Arch and his musicians played for the actual dancing and exhibitions and took a break when the results were scrutinized. That's when we came on. Our performance was recorded and shown during the results show. It was panic as we set up and got everything in place, as we didn't have too much time. However, the staff at the BBC seemed to know what they were doing, so it all happened. When the recording was shown, it would appear seamless. We were given some rehearsal time. The dancers needed that time as well to choreograph their routine. I was very impressed by the couple, Anton Dubeek and Aaron Bogue. I was told by someone there that if you wanted a foxtrot exhibition, then this was the couple who you chose. Meanwhile, Jack. I did not usually tune in to Strictly Come Dancing. My usual routine for a Saturday evening was listening to music and reading. Although Kate was performing, her spot on the show would not be broadcast until Sunday evening. So I settled for my usual evening, being rudely interrupted by the phone at 11 p.m. It was Kate, bubbling with excitement for their spot and the dancing. She was about to tell me who had been eliminated from the show when suddenly she stopped. "Oh, I can't tell you. It's a secret until Sunday evening." She went on to describe how it all went together, and that whilst their rendition of Why Do Robins Sing in December would be the only recording broadcast, they had in fact performed 3 songs, the third being You Do Something to Me, when Dave Arch and his band had jammed with them. Then she took breath. Now for the best news, Jack. The tower wants to book us for a regular spot, 3 nights every month. They reckon that with Strictly, there will be an upsurge of people dancing, and they want a competent band for people to dance to. Sounds great. Perhaps I can get there, and we can dance together. I can't dance this stuff, Jack. Neither can I. I don't believe you. You can do everything. Good of you to recognize my talents, but that isn't one of them. I know of one that is very satisfactory. Possibly, but I do need help for that. I'm the helper, and don't you forget it. She hesitated for a moment. Jack, I have 4 days free from Monday. Any chance I... Sure, come. I'll pick you up at Derby Station and I'll rearrange my appointments. Just let me know what time you get to Derby. Brilliant. I'll call you with the times. I watched the program when it was broadcast on the Sunday evening. It seems silly really, as almost everyone knows that the results show is recorded on the Saturday evening. Yet everyone involved goes to great lengths to support the fiction that the results are not known until the Sunday evening. I wasn't interested in what couples would be through to the next stage. I wanted to see Kate performing. I set my recorder up so that I would have a permanent record. Of course, I had watched the rehearsals. Yet the performance with Kate wearing a lovely cream full-length dress was something else. If I had any doubts why she had segued from rock chick to an accomplished balladeer, that program was all the proof that anyone would need. Of course, some would say that I was biased. I wouldn't argue. Of course I am biased. I managed to clear Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The Tuesday, I had one appointment I couldn't get out of. Luckily, it was in Long Eaton, so it would only take a morning to complete. It always surprised me that some celebrities could walk through a crowded place without being recognized. Kate had that ability. The glamorous woman I had seen on the TV just the day before was unrecognizable in jeans, sweatshirt, and a brown leather jacket amongst the bustle of a busy train station. That is until she saw me waiting. Then her smile flashed and she ran to me. She dropped her hold all, jumped into my arms, and immediately our mouths and tongues connected. She talked continuously on the journey back to Holland, recounting the show and snippets of gossip from and about the celebrities and the professional dancers until I drove over the cattle grid. Then there was silence. I looked over, and she wore a small, peaceful smile and a visage of peace and contentment. Once inside, she seemed to relax completely. How does it happen, Jack? The first time I came here, I had this feeling of peace and welcome. It happens every time. Because you are welcome. Anytime. And for as long as you want. She nodded. Yes, I get that feeling. It seems to enfold me as soon as I enter. It happened the first time I came here. Just walking in, I could feel the house saying, "Hello, I have been waiting for you." I decided then that I would have to seduce you, so that I could get visiting rights anytime. I see. So it's not me, it's the house you want. Now what gave you that impression? She pulled her sweatshirt over her head. I am going for a shower. Kate then flipped the waist button on her jeans as she climbed the stair. If someone would like to help me, like washing my back and my front, and anything else he wishes to, I would be very grateful. She stopped, pulled off the jeans and threw them at me. Coming. Try and stop me. I kicked off my loafers and started up the stair. The action started in the shower, and when our fingers were wrinkled from the water, we transferred to the bed where the action started all over again. Later, after we had leisurely taken a lunch, we relaxed downstairs. With music playing, we watched the sky darken as night encroached. I could feel that Kate had something on her mind and waited patiently till she felt it needed airing. I have been thinking, Jack. My bookings for rock are few and far between now. The band has quite a few bookings for late November and December, but the new year, apart from one booking in Birmingham and the Tower Ballroom, there is nothing else on the horizon. There will be bookings, I know, but they will be for the swing band. So I have decided not to accept any bookings but with the swing band. So in many ways, I shall be semi-retired. She stopped and took a deep breath, more like a gulp. Do you think? Yes. You don't know what I was going to ask? I thought perhaps that you wanted to come and spend more time here. Well, that was the gist of it. You don't mind? Not at all. In fact, I positively encourage the idea. You should know by now that you are welcome, whether I am here or not. I had picked up on the Birmingham booking. This booking in Birmingham, where is it? It's the Hippodrome, just the one night, but it's a good venue. Any possibility of my getting a ticket? Of course. I was going to suggest it anyway. I'll get you a calm. The 4 days that week were good. We seemed to move together around the cottage, preparing meals together, talking, listening to music, and later being very much in sync when we went to bed. I was not one to make too much of Christmas apart from spending too much on presents for Ellen and now Kate. I had always believed that many of the Christmas shows were pre-recorded with celebrities offering fulsome Christmas greetings to all and sundry long before the actual day. However, I found that entertainers such as Kate and the band were so busy leading up to that time of year that the actual day came in a blur. Our greetings on Christmas Day was made by telephone, with a very tired Kate in her flat and me at the cottage describing to her the countryside crisp with frost. We agreed that we would celebrate the festival early in January. New Year's Eve was the same. Revelers reveled. Kate and the band worked. We got together early in the new year and just enjoyed being together, relaxing and talking. I was very busy in January as the furniture show loomed, making sure that my customers had the fabrics they had ordered and that they also had swatches of the new fabrics. With the experience of past years, I had booked a hotel room close to the National Exhibition Center well in advance. The 4 days of the show was hectic. I wandered around the displays keeping an eye out for any designs that could become bestsellers and fending off manufacturers who wanted to know why I hadn't offered them designs that their competitors were showing. I was very interested in 2 Turkish gentlemen who were visiting the furniture manufacturers with samples of their production. One of my good customers spoke to me about them, asking why I wasn't representing them. It turned out that these gentlemen were from the mill that had missed the appointment with me when I was in Turkey. It was with some glee that I passed on the advice from the Turkish Commercial Bureau about the unreliability of this mill. No sooner had the furniture show finished than I had just a few days to prepare for Kate's show at the Hippodrome. Ellen was not returning to Durham until the last days of January, so I asked Kate if she could get a ticket for Ellen as well. She was delighted that Ellen would like to come and promised the comp tickets would be in the post that day. I booked a room at the hotel where Kate was staying for Ellen, as Kate had told me without argument that I was staying in her room. With that settled, I had to go shopping in Derby. Ellen and I were surprised when we arrived at the Hippodrome. Our comp tickets gave us a front row seat next to the central aisle. We were literally just 5 feet from the stage. I was very happy to see the auditorium filling up. The Hippodrome can seat just under 2,000, and to my eyes it looked as if it would be a full house. I had to admit my stomach was rolling over hoping that everything would go to plan. Kate had given me a rundown of the show and I knew that it could be a really good evening. Close to 8 o'clock the audience chatter softened and died away completely as the lights dimmed. Then the first strains of Moonlight Serenade filled the air and the curtains drew back to reveal the Stila Swing Band. Many of the audience clapped to welcome them. As the last few notes of the first refrain were heard, Steve lifted the radio mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kat Lacey." Kate came on from the right, wearing a full-skirted long dress in pale green. The audience clapped again over the first line of the song, but died quickly as Kate sang the first line. The program was varied. It wasn't just Glenn Miller, nor was it all swing. The band had been augmented with extra trumpets and trombones, using mutes to give the softer sound that Miller sought. After the first 3 numbers, Kat left the stage and the band played Artie Shaw's Tangerine, and then Pennsylvania 65,000. Kat came back in rock mood singing Chain Reaction and a superb rendition of Hazel O'Connor's Will You?, complete with the sax solo which brought the house down. Kat paid tribute to Sally Watts, who played the tenor sax, and the audience gave her prolonged applause. Then she went into the swing version of I Follow, which personally I believe to be better than the recorded version. The last segment of the show started with the band playing a fantastic version of Perfidia, and then Kat came back with I Know Why and So Do You. Kat had always worked the audience, and this time was little different, apart from introducing the members of the band. She then went on. Many music fans wondered why I have changed my style to swing. Well, I met this bloke. He's here, but I won't point him out. Girls, you know how embarrassed they get. Well, this bloke was into swing, and once he had played some of his music for me, I was in it too. Then as I got to know him, I guess I kind of liked him. Actually, it's far more than like. I think this one is a keeper. I had intended to propose to Kate once we were back in the hotel, but this seemed the perfect time for me. I took the little box out of my pocket and got up, walking the short distance to the apron. Kate noticed me and watched warily. My stomach was rolling over and over. Even so, I opened the box and proffered it to Kate. Her eyes were wide and glistening as she came over to where I stood and knelt. She looked at me, and with the biggest smile said, "Is this what I think it is?" "Yes." She took the ring and slipped onto her finger. "Yes, definitely," and blew me a kiss. She got up and went back to center stage. She held her hand up and cried, "Hey, look girls, I've just got engaged." The auditorium erupted and I sat down quickly, blushing profusely. Ellen grabbed my arm. "Good move, Dad." Kate went as Steve and whispered. He then sent a message to the band and they moved their scores around. When they were ready, Steve tapped the time and they went into the opening of Night and Day. Like the beat 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 of the tom-tom, when the jungle shadows fall, like the tick-tick-tock of the stately clock, as it stands against the wall. Amidst the cheers of the audience, Kate walked over to where I was sitting and sang, "Night and day, you are the one. Only you beneath the moon and under the sun." A week before we married, we had driven up to Frinton so that I could meet her parents. When her father, call me Ed, found out that I had no connection with the music business, he seemed pleased. His comment on the music business was succinct: "Never trusted any of those buggers." As Kate had forecast her mom, Enid had prepared a meal, steak and kidney pie. It was delicious. Kate lived in Chelsea and we married at the Chelsea Registry Office, which was the scene for many celebrity marriages. It was no surprise that when we came out of the registry office there were press. I doubted they were there especially for us. I think it was a happy hunting ground for them. I had never been in the situation of having flashes firing at me from many cameras, and to me it was daunting. Kate had no problem fending off the personal questions that the press seemingly thought was their right to know. One reporter wanted to know if Rick, her first husband, knew that she was getting married again. Kate replied, "Why should he?" Another asked her where she was going to live. "Somewhere in the country." She said abruptly, "Whereabouts?" "Somewhere." With Kate's terse replies that gave little information sufficient for an article, the questions dried up, and we got into the taxi which was waiting for us, and we were driven quickly to her Italian restaurant where the reception was being held. We entered to the strains of Love Is the Sweetest Thing played by the Stila Swing Band in the style of Al Bowley. I asked Steve later if he was an archaeologist. "No," he answered bemused. "What makes you think that?" "That Al Bowley number. You must have dug deep to get that one." Steve laughed. I was thinking that Kat may like to make a follow-up CD. I thought that Love Is the Sweetest Thing would be a good number for her. I thought about that and I made a suggestion. How about A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square and A Foggy Day in London Town? He thought for a moment and understood my thinking. "I like that. Make it British themed throughout. Possibly some of the Vera Lynn classics as well." "I think that would work." He nodded. "Perhaps you could talk to Kat about it. She will listen to you. Later. Let us go on honeymoon first." Ellie had stood as my witness, and she was with us as we arrived at the Italian restaurant. During the meal, she revealed that she had told her mother that I was getting married again. Roger, Ellen's stepfather, maliciously suggested that at my age I had found some desperate granny to look after me. Ellie then related the conversation, telling Roger that she didn't think that Caitlin could be described that way. "Caitlin?" he had asked. "Not many women called that. Is she Irish by any chance?" "No. Amongst her friends and family she is called Kate, but many people know her as Kat." "Kat?" He was surprised. "Yeah. Ellen had kept the best bit until last. You may have heard of her, Kat Lacey." Ellie took great delight in relating how Roger, who had always been dismissive of me, sat open-mouthed upon hearing who I was marrying. "The singer Kat Lacey?" "Yeah." Ellen had told him with relish. Kate and I laughed as Ellie went on. "Dad, I have never seen Roger lost for words, and the look on his face was priceless." Kate had an idea. "Perhaps we should send them a copy of our wedding photo?" "That," I said laughing, "would be evil, wouldn't you say?" "Just deserts," opined Ellie. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.